Order. I will call Peter Dowd to move the motion, and then I will call the Minister to respond. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention of 30-minute debates. Order, order. Peter Dowd to move the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Aston. What an absolute pleasure it is to see you in the chair, and of course, a pleasure to see the Minister in his chair, though not as much a pleasure as it is to see the chair in the chair. I want to set a little bit of context to this, because this is in relation to national highways and the maintenance and management of the A5036. The A5036 is in effect the main road from the M57 and the M58 down to the Liverpool port. It's the port access road in effect. It's an A road, and it's, I think, the only A road in the whole of the Merseyside City region that the Highways Agency actually manage. There may be smaller parts in the Wirral, South Wirral, but for all intents and purposes, as I understand it, that's the only major A road that they manage in Merseyside City region. So that sets the context for this. It has about 40,000 traffic movements a day, thereabouts. That's about 1,600 an hour. And you can imagine at peak time, that's a huge amount of traffic movements, basically. It's about 4 miles long, as I said, from the M58 to the down the A508 through to the docks. Now, I can give a little bit more of context to this and why I've raised this matter today. Some months ago, I had to raise with the Speaker a matter, a point of order, Mrs. Harris, in relation to what I saw as the inappropriate behaviour of the North West Office at National Highways. And that revolved around a Freedom of Information request that was put to them by a local group, the Rimrose Valley Friends, where they, when we got the information, some of the comments in it were completely inappropriate. So it talked about, more or less, we're best not to tell the Member of Parliament, i.e. me, about certain issues because I'll go off and rile up my constituents. That's what they said. That's the tone, that's the culture of that organisation. And I had to raise that with the Speaker, and the then Minister came to speak to me about it. And that sets, as I said, and I repeat, that sets the tone of the trying to engage with national highways in my constituency. The bottom line is, I don't underestimate the challenges of keeping a road of that nature, about 4 miles long, into some sort of shape, in collaboration with the local authority. But it is not a motorway. It is a road that goes, as I said, from the M58 and the M57 through residential areas. And there's an expectation by those residents that Highways England, in collaboration with whoever the partners are, that they keep that road into some sort of order. And I've got to say, I know that the local authority have had challenges working with the National Highways on this particular matter, whether it be in relation to litter, whether it be in relation to the detritus on the road, whether it be in relation to all the sort of weeds, which it appears National Highways take the view, well, it's a road, it doesn't impact upon, quote, the safety of the road, because these weeds are everywhere, they're not 6 feet high. So it seems to me they take a view that it really doesn't matter and don't take into account the actual environment that people actually have to live in. And it's quite clear that the people along that road and in the area are put out, to say the least, by the attitude of National Highways to this particular matter. And there's an insouciant attitude from Highways England. They don't think that they are accountable, in my view, to anybody, and they feel able to make the comments they did about me in documentation. That sets the tone. I think I've said that for the third or fourth time. That sets the tone. The concerns, trying to engage with them is very difficult. And I'll give another anecdote about this as well. There's a bridge at Park Lane West. It's been there for about 50 years, a footbridge. It links two communities, a church, a school. Most of the children from one side of this major road have to go to the other. There were plans to rebuild this footbridge. I think the Highways England bought land to build it up to modern day standards. And then delay after delay after delay, and then decided there was a lorry collision, so they had to take the bridge down. And that was the opportunity for Highways England, as part of this maintenance programme, if you want, not to go ahead with building that new bridge. When I asked them, would they, because they said the figures had gone up and up and up, difficult to find out precisely how much these figures had gone up by because of this secrecy, frankly, and lack of candour. It's a lack of candour from national highways. So what then happened is that I spoke to them and said, well, look, you may well wish to go and ask the department, because if it's outside the parameters of a particular cost set for a bridge, for the sake of argument, can you go off to the department and ask the department if they would, if you want, give an exemption? Given the circumstances at the time, there's always the opportunity to use discretion in these sort of situations. And if they don't have the discretion, perhaps the department might have had the discretion, or the minister might have had the discretion. And I asked them to do that. It rolled on, rolled on. Then I asked them about 4 weeks ago, had they bothered to ask the minister? No, they said, we hadn't bothered to ask the minister because we don't want the bridge. Now, that wasn't the question they were asked. They were asked, could you go off and ask the minister, the department, whoever, for this, if you want, dispensation? And that is the culture. They decided, and this is what they said in the document, a bridge, a footbridge, is a 20th century solution. Try telling that to all those children who are frightened to death to walk across the road, even with their parents. Try telling that to some older people at a massively busy junction. And it seems to be that this focus just on getting traffic along this road without taking appropriate account of the public and the pedestrians. And of course, what I've been told is, oh, well, we're going to have this new pedestrian sort of approach to this crossing. I will give way to the honourable member.
For bringing this forward, and his passion and his concern for his constituents is admirable. What is frustrating to me, listening to the honourable gentleman, is the response from National Highways to all of his very eloquent and sensible approaches. But the key issue, as he has underlined, and as I see it, listening to the honourable gentleman, is the safety of the children. If a bridge has been removed, which is important for the movement of children from one side of the road to the other, if it hasn't been replaced, then the safety issue is even more paramount today than ever it was. So is the honourable gentleman, in his discussions with Natural Highways England and the Minister, is there a conclusion coming forth? There must be a way, has to be a way.
Well, I do appreciate the honourable gentleman's intervention. I think that's what I'm trying to use, the way forward in relation to this. The point about that bridge, for example, it's just a reflection of the whole approach that National Highways take to these things, where we are an encumbrance on the stuff that they have to do every day. And for example, one of the previous transport ministers, Baroness Veer, myself and other people, including my honourable friend, the member for Sefton Central, met because they refused to give certain information in relation to freedom of information. It was the minister herself had to say to them, give them the information. That's the environment and the context in which we operate. And I don't want to get this too technical in terms of information, but that data and the sharing of information and showing us what they're doing and why they're doing it, why they're not doing things is important. And in fact, there was, remember, this is a company, because it is in effect a company which has a budget of 1.34 billion in relation to resource and about 3.5 billion in relation to capital. And why you can't use some of that to replace this bridge that's been there for 50 years is beyond me. But there you are. That's a different point. Litter is of concern. This has been identified in the report from the Office and Road Rail and Road Regulator, because I had to speak to them about it. And they investigated National Highways as well. And, surprise, surprise, although it wasn't a surprise in the least bit to me, I can quote from their document. The Office and Road Rail Investigation to National Highways complains with the licence and delivery of the second road investment, etc., etc. It talks about, in effect, National Highways' apparent concerns about sharing data and information restricts its ability to show how it is performing its function and results in more work for the company and the Office for Rail and Road. That sums up the situation. And of course, they had to highlight that to National Highways. And then it goes on to say, National Highways has not been able to demonstrate consistently and reasonably with evidence the basis on which it has taken decisions and the consequences of doing so on users, i.e. my constituents, and network performance. And then it goes on to say, during the investigation, we identified instances where the company held material that it could and should have shared with the Office for Rail and Road sooner, or where it told us that it did not hold data or information that we needed to effectively carry out our statutory functions, and that we consider that the company should reasonably be held in order to carry out its own statutory functions. And it goes on to say, the National Highways provided 300 pieces of information. While we would not have expected to see all this information as part of our business as usual enhancing, there was enough across 6 areas of concern to indicate there is more information that the company could and should share with us. Now that, from the Independent Office for Rail and Road, again sums up the attitude to National Highways. So in the grand scheme of things, if I or you, Madam Speaker, I'm sure you will be a Madam Deputy Speaker in due course, if any of us at our local level tried to find this information, even the Office for Rail and Road cannot get the information that they need. A minister had to tell them, as I indicated before, to give us the information. When we find out the information that they provide, it's absolutely outrageous to the point a member, i.e. me, has to go off and speak or raise the matter with the Speaker. Now, that's the context of the issue about the maintenance. It's very difficult to engage with them. There is an absolute lack of candour, complete lack of candour in my opinion, a complete lack of disrespect for elected members, a lack of disrespect for the local authority, but most important of all, Mrs Harris, it is a lack of respect for my constituents who have to live along that road, which is already challenging them for them. So I'd ask the Minister to take those issues into account when he responds to me, because this matter is not going to go away. This debate isn't the end of it, and I think the sooner National Highways actually understand that and actually try to engage with me, local residents, with the local authority and other people, the partners as it's called, and the users, the better. So I'll finish on that particular point, Mrs Harris, but reaffirm this matter is not going away, and I will be holding National Highways to account in every single way I can to ensure that my constituents get the fair deal that they are entitled to. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered National Highways maintenance and management of the A5036. Minister Simon Lightwood.
Thank you very much, and a pleasure to see you in the chair, and also a pleasure to respond to my honourable friend, the member for Bootle, but in agreement with my honourable friend, it's more of a pleasure to see you in the chair. Good transport connections are key to unlocking essential growth for cities, and that is why I want to thank the honourable gentleman for calling this debate. I note that this is the third debate for the honourable member which he secured on the subject of the A5036 in recent times, and he is indeed a very strong advocate for his constituents and road users, campaigning extensively on the proposed improvements to this vital road in his constituency. Transport links play a crucial role in supporting productivity, innovation and economic growth in cities, towns and communities. It is the reason that the government is determined to build a transport infrastructure to drive economic growth and opportunity in every part of the country, and to deliver value for money for taxpayers. Our strategic road network is the backbone of our country's economy, with 4,500 miles of motorways and major air roads. It connects people, builds communities, creates opportunities and helps the UK thrive. Although it only makes up some 2.4% of England's overall road network, it is the most heavily used and carries a third of all traffic and 2/3 of all freight. Transport is at the heart of this mission-driven government, transforming infrastructure to work for the whole country, to unlock growth, promote social mobility and tackle regional inequality. The A5036 performs a number of important functions. It serves as its local community as a commuter route. It acts as a link for trips to and from Bootle, Maghull and Liverpool city centre and forms part of the strategic road network providing national routes to and from the Port of Liverpool. The honourable gentleman will be aware of previous government's commitments about the improvement to the A5036 Princess Way, and I know that he has long campaigned against the scheme, but he will also be aware that the Secretary of State has commissioned an internal review that will look at the department's capital projects. The review will consider the department's capital portfolio spending, including road projects such as the A5036 Princess Way. This review will include the department's new long-term strategy and inform it for transport, developing a modern and integrated network with people at its heart, and ensuring that transport infrastructure can be delivered efficiently and on time. And as you'll appreciate, we're not yet able to provide assurances on any individual project at this time, but will of course provide any update once that review has concluded. The honourable member raises an important point of finding multimodal solutions, including rail, of course. And I'm aware of the commitment to find a multimodal solution to port access and wish to acknowledge the work of the Port Access Steering Group, chaired by the Liverpool City Region Merrill Combined Authority. The honourable gentleman will be aware that the Liverpool City Region Merrill Combined Authority is also consulting on its 4th draft of the local transport plan, which will include a strategy for freight and logistics. National Highways supported the City Region to develop this plan, and the department is awaiting the adoption of the plan with interest. Turning to the issue of Park Lane footbridge, as the honourable member will be aware, the bridge was struck by an HGV back in October 22, and that National Highways installed a temporary signal-controlled crossing for cyclists and pedestrians since then. National Highways has undertaken a review of possible solutions and have determined, as my honourable friend has said, that a permanent signal-controlled crossing at all arms of the junction is the best solution. In considering this option, National Highways considered the need to provide safer journeys for everyone, including those with mobility issues, cyclists and parents with pushchairs. So I will say to my honourable friend that I've heard his message loud and clear in terms of information sharing and candour, and will of course discuss this with the Minister for the future of roads. National Highways is working with Sefton Council and Active Travel England to develop this scheme. This will align with other schemes, including the nearby Maritime Corridor Active Travel Scheme. National Highways expect to start work on the crossing in the next financial year. This is part due to the need to coordinate roadworks at Park Lane and the Atlantic Gateway Maritime Corridor, together with safety improvements at Switch Island, along with pavement resurfacing work, which is planned for delivery in the first half of 25-26.
What he said in relation to the footbridge, and that wasn't the purpose per se today, because that's going to be another matter I'll take up. The point in relation to the footbridge is that massive, major consultation went out on its replacement, and for some reason they chose, National Highways chose, to ditch that plan without discussing it with anybody whatsoever. That is the concern that we have. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows what the information was based on. And that's where we're at. And I'd ask them to hold this till we can pursue this further, because it is absolutely outrageous what they did.
Lightwood.
My honourable friend for his intervention. As I said, we'll take that back and discuss that further with the Minister for the Future of Roads. I agree with the honourable member that maintenance, of course, of the strategic road network is of utmost importance. National Highways maintenance regime is guided by the standards contained in the design manual for roads and bridges, and it has a programme of maintenance activities for the A5036 planned for this year, which I can assure the honourable member, which is mostly completed now, Outstanding works on the grass and vegetation will be completed by the end of this financial year. You'll also be pleased to know that National Highways is currently delivering a scheme to improve safety at Switch Island. This includes average speed cameras on the M57 approach and red light enforcement at some of the traffic signals on the junction. These vital safety improvements will be completed by the end of this financial year. Just in closing, Mrs Harris, I want to thank the Honourable Member once again, not only for securing this debate and the important points he raises, which of course, as I said, I will raise the issues of candour and information flow with the Minister for Roads, but his commitment, his continued commitment to champion the needs of his constituents. I do hope that the Honourable Gentleman is satisfied by the response I provided, which makes clear that the Department recognises the vital importance of good transport links for cities, regions and the whole of the United Kingdom.
The question is that this House has considered National Highways Maintenance Management of the A5036. As many of their opinions say aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30 p.m.